You survived something that was supposed to destroy you. And now you're walking through life like you won a war. But here's what no one tells you about surviving trauma. About crawling out of hell and living to tell the story. The real danger doesn't come from what almost destroyed you. The real danger comes from what you become in order to survive it. You built armor, you learned to disconnect. You trained yourself to feel less, need less, trust less. You became efficient at emotional self-amputation, and it worked. You're still here, breathing, functioning, moving through the world. But somewhere along the way, something shifted. The mechanisms you created to survive started running on autopilot. The walls you built to keep pain out started keeping everything out. And now, you're standing in your life, technically safe, technically alive, wondering why nothing feels real anymore. Wondering why you can destroy beautiful things with the same cold efficiency you once used to protect yourself. You look at people who love you and feel nothing. You sabotage opportunities that could change your life. You walk away from connections that make you feel something, precisely because they make you feel something. And the worst part? You understand exactly what you're doing. You watch yourself do it, but you can't seem to stop. Because the part of you that survived learned one fundamental lesson. Feeling is dangerous. Connection is a threat. Vulnerability is a death sentence. So you ask yourself, late at night when the numbness cracks just enough to let the question through, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just be normal? Why do I destroy everything I touch? But what if I told you that nothing is wrong with you? What if the very thing you're calling broken is actually the most sophisticated defense system ever created? What if your inability to feel, to connect, to trust, isn't a malfunction at all, but rather the logical endpoint of a mind that learned to survive the unsurvivable? And what if the real danger you're facing now isn't that you're damaged beyond repair, but that you're still operating from a war manual in a world that's no longer at war? Let me explain what happened to you. Not the trauma itself, you already know that story by heart. I'm talking about what happened after, the invisible architecture of survival that you constructed, brick by brick, in the darkness of your worst moments. Heidegger had this concept he called throwness, the idea that we're thrown into existence without choosing our circumstances, forced to make sense of a world we never agreed to enter. But he also understood something crucial about human beings. We're meaning-making creatures. We don't just react to our environment, we interpret it. We build frameworks to understand it. And when we experience something catastrophic, something that threatens our fundamental sense of safety in the world, we don't just heal from it. We reorganize our entire understanding of reality around it. This is what happened to you. You didn't just survive trauma. You created a philosophy of survival. An entire worldview built on one premise: never again. Never be that vulnerable again. Never trust that completely again. Never need that desperately again. And this philosophy worked. It kept you alive when staying alive felt impossible. It got you through the unspeakable, but here's what you didn't realize at the time, couldn't possibly have realized. Every survival strategy has an expiration date. Every defense mechanism that saves your life in crisis becomes a prison when the crisis ends. You built a bunker when you needed one. But now you're living in that bunker during peacetime, and you've forgotten how to open the door. Think about it like this. Imagine you're in a city under siege. Bombs falling every night, no electricity, no running water, constant threat. In that environment, you develop very specific behaviors. You don't leave the house unless absolutely necessary. You stockpile resources, you trust no one, you sleep in your clothes, you keep weapons within reach. You become hyper-vigilant, reading every situation for danger, every person for betrayal, and these behaviors aren't paranoid, they're appropriate, they keep you alive. Now imagine the war ends, the siege lifts, the city rebuilds, life returns to normal, but you're still living like you're under attack. You're still sleeping in your clothes, still seeing enemies everywhere, still unable to relax, to trust, to believe that you're actually safe. People tell you the war is over. You understand intellectually that the war is over. But your body, your nervous system, your entire survival architecture hasn't gotten the message. Because that architecture was built during a time when letting your guard down meant death. This is what's happening when you destroy the things you love. When you push away people who care about you. When you sabotage your own happiness with surgical precision, you're not broken, you're not defective. You're operating from a framework that was perfectly designed for a war you're no longer fighting. And here's the thing that makes this so insidious. The trauma that created this framework also created the conviction that you can never let your guard down. Because the moment you felt safe before, everything fell apart. The moment you trusted before, you were betrayed. The moment you loved before, you were destroyed. So your mind draws a very simple conclusion. Safety is an illusion. Trust is a trap. Love is just the prelude to loss. And if you've been nodding along, recognizing yourself in these words, maybe it's time to join the space where we go deeper every week. You know where the button is? Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, but my vigilance is justified. My distrust is rational. I learned these lessons the hard way, and forgetting them would be naive, foolish, dangerous, and you're right, partially your vigilance was justified. Your distrust was rational, in the context where you learned it. But here's what you need to understand. The mind that saves you in crisis is not the same mind you need for living. The skills that kept you alive in hell are not the skills you need for building heaven. Most people who survive trauma make a predictable mistake. They try to go back to who they were before. They try to recover their innocence, their openness, their capacity for trust. And when they can't, when they find that person is gone forever, they conclude that they're broken, that something essential was stolen from them, that they'll never be whole again. But this is a fundamental misunderstanding of what survival actually requires. You're not trying to recover who you were. That person couldn't have survived what you survived. You're trying to evolve beyond who you had to become in order to survive it. There's a difference. The person you were before was innocent, trusting, open. That person was beautiful. But that person was also unprepared for what came. And when it came, that person had to die so that you could live. This isn't a metaphor. Something in you actually died. The part that believed the world was fundamentally safe, the part that trusted in basic human goodness, the part that thought, if I just love enough, try enough, am enough, everything will be okay, that part died. And in its place, you created someone harder, sharper, more efficient at emotional self-protection. Someone who could survive in a world where safety is an illusion and trust is a trap. But this is crucial. That person was never meant to be permanent. That person was a transition, a necessary evolution for a specific environment. But now the environment has changed, and you're still running that software, still operating from that framework, and it's killing you in a completely different way. Nietzsche understood this. He wrote about how we become what we need to become in order to overcome what would otherwise overcome us. But he also warned about the danger of staying in that state too long. He said, "Battle not with monsters, lest ye become a monster. And if you gaze into the abyss gazes also into you." This wasn't just poetic language. This was a warning about the cost of survival, about what happens when the strategies you use to fight darkness become darkness themselves. You gazed into the abyss. There was no other way through. But now, the abyss is gazing back through your eyes. Now you're looking at the world from the perspective of that darkness, and everything you see is colored by it. Every act of love looks like a potential betrayal. Every moment of vulnerability looks like a tactical error. Every connection looks like a future loss. You're just delaying. So you do what makes perfect sense from that framework. You destroy first. You leave before you can be left. You hurt before you can be hurt. You control the damage by causing it yourself. At least then you know it's coming. At least then you're not blindsided. At least then you're the agent, not the victim. This is the perils of surviving trauma. Not the trauma itself, but the fact that the person who survived it is still fighting a war that ended years ago. Still seeing enemies in people who are trying to love you. Still hearing explosions in moments of silence. Still unable to believe that peace is possible because the last time you believed in peace, you were destroyed by what came after. Let me tell you about someone I knew, a man who survived something genuinely horrific. I won't give you the details because they're not the point. The point is what happened after. He rebuilt his life, got a good job, found someone who loved him, created all the external markers of recovery, but inside, he was still living in the moment of his trauma. Still operating from the framework he created to survive it. His partner would reach for him, and he would flinch. Not consciously. His body would flinch before his mind could stop it. because his body remembered, his nervous system remembered, and every touch, even loving touch, registered as potential threat. He would wake up at 3 in the morning in full panic, convinced something terrible was about to happen, no reason, no trigger. Just his system, still scanning for danger, still convinced that safety is temporary and disaster is always imminent. And the worst part, he knew it was irrational. He could see that he was safe, that his partner loved him, that the danger had passed. But knowing something intellectually and believing it at the level of your nervous system are completely different things. His mind said, "You're safe," but his body, his survival architecture, screamed. This is when it happens. This is when everything falls apart. Don't trust it. So he started sabotaging small things at first. Picking fights over nothing, creating distance, testing his partner's limits. And when I asked him why, he said something I'll never forget. If it's going to end, I'd rather be the one who ends it. At least then, I'm in control. Do you see what's happening here? The trauma didn't just hurt him. It convinced him that hurt was inevitable. So now he was hurting himself preemptively, thinking he was protecting himself, when really he was just completing the job the trauma started. But then, something shifted. Not dramatically, not in one therapeutic breakthrough or spiritual awakening. It was much simpler and much harder than that. He was sitting with his partner one night, both of them silent, and he felt the familiar urge to create distance, to say something cutting, to push away. And instead of acting on it, he just watched it, noticed the urge, noticed the fear underneath it, noticed the old framework activating. This is too good. This won't last. Protect yourself now, before it's too late. And in that moment of watching, of witnessing his own survival mechanism in action, he realized something crucial. He had a choice. Not about whether he felt the fear, he didn't get to choose that, but about whether he acted on it, about whether he let the framework from his trauma dictate his behavior in his present. And if you're still here, if this is resonating deeper than you expected, consider staying. We explore these depths every single week. He started practicing something simple, noticing the gap between the impulse to protect himself and the action of protecting himself. In that gap, he found something he thought he'd lost forever. Not innocence. Not the person he was before, but agency. The capacity to choose how he responded to his own fear, rather than being controlled by it. This is what I need you to understand. You're not trying to go back to who you were before the trauma. That person is gone. You're not trying to pretend the trauma didn't happen or that its effects aren't real. They are real. You're trying to do something much more difficult and much more important. You're trying to stop letting the worst thing that ever happened to you be the thing that determines every decision you make for the rest of your life. Right now, you're living like a hostage. Not to the person or situation that hurt you, but to the survival mechanism you created in response to it. The walls you built, the armor you wear, the distance you maintain. These things were necessary once, they saved you. But now, they're keeping you trapped in a version of reality where safety is impossible and connection is dangerous. Think about it like this. Imagine you're a tree that grew in a place where the wind was constant and brutal. You didn't grow straight up toward the sun, like trees in protected valleys. You grew twisted, bent, with your roots gripping the ground like claws, your branches close to your trunk for protection, and this adaptation saved you. You survived winds that killed straighter, taller trees. But now, imagine the wind stops, the climate changes, you're in a gentler environment, but you're still growing twisted, still keeping your branches close, still gripping the earth like you're expecting a storm. And people look at you and see a damaged tree, a broken tree, but you're not broken, you're adapted. The problem is, you're adapted to conditions that no longer exist. And you can't just decide to grow straight. Your form is set, your structure is built. You can't undo the twisting that saved you. But here's what you can do. You can grow new branches. You can allow new growth that responds to the new environment instead of the old one. You can let parts of yourself that have been locked down for years start to reach out again, not recklessly, not naively, but consciously, intentionally, as an experiment in whether the world you're living in now is actually the world your survival mechanism thinks you're living in. This is the work, not healing. Exactly. Not recovery in the sense of going back to some pristine original state, but evolution. Growing beyond the form that survival demanded into a form that living demands. Now, I must warn you about something. You might be thinking, this sounds like vulnerability, this sounds like opening up, this sounds like trusting again. And every fiber of your survival system is screaming, absolutely not. That's how you got hurt before. That's the trap, that's the danger. And I'm not going to tell you that instinct is wrong. I'm going to tell you something more uncomfortable. That instinct is outdated. It's reading the present through the lens of the past. It's treating every situation like it's the situation that traumatized you, even when it demonstrably isn't. Your survival mechanism did its job. It kept you alive. But it has one fatal flaw. It can't tell the difference between actual danger and the memory of danger. It can't distinguish between this person is going to hurt me and this person reminds me of how it felt to be hurt. So it treats everything with the same level of threat. And in doing so, it creates a world where you're always in danger, always under threat, always needing to defend yourself against attacks that aren't actually coming. This is why you sabotage relationships that are actually good. Why you destroy opportunities that could actually help you. Why you push away people who actually love you, not because you're broken or self-destructive, but because your survival system can't calibrate. It only has one setting: maximum defense. And maximum defense in peacetime looks like self-destruction. Schopenhauer wrote about this kind of suffering. He talked about how humans are caught between pain and boredom, between the suffering of wanting and the emptiness of having. But he also understood something deeper, that the greatest suffering comes not from external circumstances, but from our resistance to reality as it is. From our refusal to accept that life includes both safety and danger, both connection and loss, both love and the risk of betrayal. You're suffering not because you were traumatized, but because you're trying to create a life where trauma is impossible, where you never have to feel that vulnerable again, where you never have to risk that kind of pain again. And in trying to create that impossible safety, you're creating a different kind of suffering. The suffering of numbness, of isolation, of watching yourself destroy the things you actually want because wanting them feels too dangerous. Here's the paradox. The only way to be truly safe from loss is to never have anything to lose. The only way to be safe from betrayal is to never trust. The only way to be safe from heartbreak is to never love. And if you achieve that kind of safety, if you actually succeed in making yourself invulnerable, you'll discover something terrible. You've also made yourself incapable of experiencing anything that makes life worth living. This is where you are right now. You've achieved a kind of safety. You're protected, defended, armored, and you're discovering that this safety feels a lot like death. That protection from pain also means protection from joy. That emotional armor doesn't discriminate, it keeps out the bad, but it also keeps out the good. So the question becomes, what now? You can't go back to who you were. You can't undo the survival mechanism you created. You can't unlearn the lessons trauma taught you. But you also can't keep living like this, can you? You can't keep destroying what you love. You can't keep pushing away what you need. You can't keep treating peace like it's the moment before war. The answer isn't to lower your defenses completely. That would be naive. The answer isn't to trust blindly or love recklessly or make yourself vulnerable in the same way you were vulnerable before. That's not growth, that's repetition. The answer is something more subtle and more difficult. It's learning to distinguish between actual threat and remembered threat, between real danger and fear of danger, between protecting yourself and isolating yourself. This requires a completely different skill set than the one you developed to survive. Survival requires speed, decisiveness, absolute commitment to defense. But what you need now requires patience, discernment, and the willingness to stay present with uncertainty. To sit with the discomfort of not knowing whether someone is trustworthy without immediately assuming they aren't. To allow connection without immediately sabotaging it. To let yourself want something without immediately destroying it to avoid losing it. There's a name for this new way of being. Call it conscious vulnerability, not the unconscious vulnerability of innocence, where you trust because you don't know better, but the conscious vulnerability of wisdom, where you know exactly what can go wrong, you know exactly what it costs when it does, and you choose to stay open anyway. Not because you're naive, but because you understand that the alternative, a life lived behind walls, alone with your safety, is not actually safer. It's just slower death. Conscious vulnerability means you feel the fear and you check whether it's proportional to reality. It means you notice the urge to sabotage and you pause before acting on it. It means you recognize your survival patterns while they're happening, and you ask, is this response appropriate to this situation, or am I responding to a situation that happened years ago? This is completely different from the openness you had before trauma. That openness was unconscious. It didn't know danger existed. But this openness, this conscious vulnerability, knows danger intimately. It's felt danger. It's survived danger. And it chooses to remain open anyway, not out of ignorance, but out of understanding that the greatest danger you face now is not from the world around you, but from the prison you've built inside yourself. If this is hitting different for you, if you're recognizing patterns you thought were just you being broken, subscribe if you want to keep going deeper, because this is where it gets really uncomfortable. Now, you might think this sounds rather terrifying. You might be thinking, you're asking me to dismantle the only thing that's kept me alive? You're asking me to lower my defenses in a world that already proved it's dangerous? You're asking me to trust again after trust destroyed me? And yes, that's exactly what I'm asking. But I'm asking it for a specific reason. The thing that kept you alive in crisis is now killing you in peace. Your hypervigilance is exhausting you. Your emotional armor is suffocating you. Your preemptive strikes against potential future pain are creating actual present pain. The defense system is now the threat. Here's what your survival mechanism can't understand. Intensity is not the same as aliveness. Constant vigilance is not the same as safety. Numbness is not the same as protection. You've trained yourself to operate at such a high level of defense that you've forgotten what it feels like to just exist without constantly scanning for danger. You've forgotten what it feels like to be present with someone without simultaneously calculating how they might hurt you. You've forgotten what it feels like to want something without immediately anticipating its loss. And the cost of this forgetting is everything. It's your relationships, your peace, your capacity for joy, your ability to rest. You're so busy defending yourself against a war that ended that you can't see the life that's trying to happen right in front of you. I need to tell you a story. There was a soldier who came back from war. He'd seen terrible things, done terrible things, lost people he loved. And when he came home, everyone expected him to be grateful, to be relieved, to celebrate his survival. But he couldn't, because home didn't feel like home. It felt like the moment before an ambush. Every sound was a potential threat. Every stranger was a possible enemy. Every moment of peace felt like the calm before the storm. His family would try to comfort him. They'd say, "You're safe now. The war is over. You're home." But their words meant nothing, because his nervous system hadn't gotten the message. His survival architecture was still fully active. And the worst part, he couldn't explain it to them. How do you tell someone that peace feels more terrifying than combat? Because at least in combat, the danger is real. So he isolated himself, built walls, kept everyone at a distance. It wasn't that he didn't love them, it was that loving them felt like handing them a weapon, like giving them the power to destroy him, and he'd already been destroyed once. He couldn't go through it again. One day his daughter approached him. She was young, maybe 7 or 8, and she asked him a simple question. "Daddy, why do you always look so scared?" And he realized in that moment that she was right. He was scared. Not of any specific thing, but of everything. Of life itself. Of the possibility of loss. Of the vulnerability that connection demands. And he made a choice in that moment, not to stop being scared. He couldn't do that. But to stop letting his fear determine who he was to his daughter. To stop letting the worst thing that ever happened to him be the thing that defined every interaction he had with people who hadn't hurt him. He started small, really small. He let his daughter hug him without his body going rigid. He sat at dinner without scanning the room for exits. He allowed himself moments of presence without immediately anticipating disaster, and it was excruciating. Every instinct screamed, "This is the trap. This is when it happens. Protect yourself." But he stayed anyway, not because it felt safe, because he understood that his definition of safety was actually a prison. Over time, and it took years, not months, he learned to distinguish between the fear that was protecting him and the fear that was imprisoning him. The fear that said, "This person might hurt you," versus the fear that said, "Everyone will hurt you eventually, so don't get close to anyone." The fear that was specific and proportional versus the fear that was generalized and totalizing. He never became the person he was before the war. That person died in combat, but he became someone new. Someone who carried trauma without being controlled by it. Someone who understood danger without seeing it everywhere. Someone who could love his daughter, could be present with his family, could have moments of genuine peace, not because he forgot what he'd been through, but because he refused to let what he'd been through determine everything he became after. This is what I'm asking of you. Not to forget, not to pretend your trauma didn't happen, not to force yourself back into innocence, but to stop giving your trauma power over your present, to stop letting the survival mechanism you created in hell dictate how you live in not hell. You're in the middle of a transformation right now. It doesn't feel like transformation. It feels like destruction. It feels like you're losing yourself, losing your edge, losing the thing that kept you alive. But here's what's actually happening. You're shedding a skin that no longer fits. You're outgrowing a framework that was designed for a war. You're no longer fighting. And it feels like dying because something is dying. The person you had to become to survive is dying. And that's exactly what needs to happen for you to actually live. Think about it like metamorphosis. When a caterpillar enters a chrysalis, it doesn't just grow wings, it dissolves completely. Its entire body liquefies. If you could see inside that chrysalis during the process, you wouldn't see a caterpillar becoming a butterfly. You'd see organic soup, complete dissolution. And from the caterpillar's perspective, if it had the consciousness to experience it, it would feel like annihilation, like total loss of self, like death. But it's not death, it's transformation. The caterpillar's cells contain instructions for something it's never been.